prayer. Please hum along if you know the words. God, please help me to set aside everything I think God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, about the 12 steps. And please allow me to gain a fresh new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. And as this is the Fourth Dimension Big Book Study, we always like to read the two parts of our book that refer to the fourth dimension. First of all, on page 8, Bill Wilson writes that I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And then on page 25, if you can give me a moment, Bill Wilson writes that we have found much of heaven and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. Okay, we're going to be catapulted. We're going to be rocketed. And for the sake of the custom and tradition of the Fourth Dimension Big Book Study, with everyone with their video on, please put one hand up like this. Everybody put another hand up like this. And everyone go, oh yeah. All right, I love it. I hope you guys are happy to be here. I know I'm certainly happy to be here cruising on the broad highway. I am not trudging today, man. I am not trudging the road of happy destiny. I am cruising on the broad highway. I am surfing in the fourth dimension today. And if you're not feeling that way, I hope that you'll catch a wave. And by the end of this hour together, that you'll be hanging 10. All right. Glad you guys are here. And let's get into it. We are on, we're in Bill's story tonight. And we are really at one of the great turning points of human history, I believe. Up until this point, last week, all that we had heard is this guy named Bill Wilson, who was just continually on a downward spiral, whose life was just getting worse and worse, who had and suffered from the cycle of alcoholism that we get from Dr. Silkworth. And I'm just trying to pull it up here. There it is. Okay, so we're reading the story. We have read the story of a guy who suffered from this cycle. We get this cycle from Dr. William D. Silkworth in the big book, in the chapter, The Doctor's Opinion, page XXVIII. Bill Wilson has sworn off many times. We see him become restless, irritable, and discontent, suffering from the spiritual malady, having an insane thought, an inability to distinguish the true from the false, believing the lie of alcoholism, telling himself, this time I'll do better, this time it'll be fine, this time I'll take just a little bit, this time I'll drink like a gentleman, so on and so forth, taking that first drink. And what are we always seeking when we take that first drink? We are seeking to get a sense of ease and comfort. And I'm an alcoholic, guys, who today is sober. I'm sober in the program by God's grace in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I have found a way to be easy and comfortable and sober at the same time. And that's really what Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. I have found in AA what I was always looking for in the bottle. In the past, I would have one of two choices. I would either be sober and restless and irritable and discontent and filled with resentment and fear and shame and guilt and depression and all that stuff. Or I could take a couple drinks and feel a sense of ease and comfort. Alcoholics Anonymous has offered me an experience of life where I can feel a sense of ease and comfort in sobriety. I have discovered a higher degree of mental comfort in Alcoholics Anonymous, and an escape from the tortures of my mind in AA. Okay, so I don't have to drink anymore. It is no longer necessary for me to drink anymore to preserve my sanity, to prevent myself from becoming restless, irritable, and discontent. So we see Bill Wilson take that first drink, triggering the craving, the spirituality, not the spiritual malady, triggering a physical allergy relative to that manifests itself in a phenomenon of craving, entering the well-known stages of a spree, and emerging remorseful. We've seen him emerge remorseful many, many, many times. So that's the problem. And what I want to share with you guys right now is what's going to happen tonight. And I'm going to review something that we've covered before, but I think it's well for us to bring it to bear again right now. These are the three things. Oh, there we go. You guys see that? These are the three things that every alcoholic needs to know in order to achieve recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. I need to know what my problem is. I need to know what the solution is, and I need a program of action. Program of action to achieve the solution to overcome the problem. Right now, guys, let's be clear. Bill Wilson is drunk, and he knows what the problem is. He has been given the problem from Dr. William D. Silkworth at the town's hospital, okay? And in fact, guys, let's go into it right now. Brad, will you be good enough to read for us tonight?
I would love to, Kevin.
Okay, so let's go now, everyone, to page 7, and we're going to read. So Bill Wilson now is in the town's hospital. His brother-in-law gets him into the hospital. Bill Wilson goes to this hospital 4 times. Once, right, Rob? Once in 1933 and 3 times in 1934. And we're going to see what he learned from Dr. Silkworth. Okay, we're going to start on page 7. It relieved me somewhat to learn. Okay, Brad, over to you.
Hey, everybody, Brad, alcoholic still.
Brad?
It relieved me somewhat to learn that an alcoholic, the will is amazingly weak when it comes to combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects. My incredible behavior in the face of a desperate desire to stop was explained. Understanding myself now, I fared forth with for 3 or 4 months. I went to town regularly and even made a little money. Surely this was the answer: self-knowledge.
Okay, and so we talked about this the other week. Like, what does self-knowledge mean? What does that mean for you and I? Okay, what that means for you and I is people that come to this study, and I've seen it. I've been doing this study for the better part of 15 years. I'm grateful to say. Okay, I'm not flexing on that. I am incredibly grateful to have had the privilege and the honor to facilitate this big book study for 15 years. And in 15 years, I have seen dozens and dozens and dozens and hundreds of people come through. And some of them take off like a rocket, and they come here and they grab this spiritual toolkit, and their lives are transformed forever. And it's a beautiful thing. But what a lot of people do is they come here and they learn this. They learn this cycle. They think that by learning this cycle, they have discovered a solution. And that is not the case. That is what we mean when we say self-knowledge. Bill Wilson now, as a result of getting this cycle from Dr. Silkworth himself, what better teacher could there be of this cycle? Bill Wilson now has what he calls self-knowledge. Okay, and what did we just read? He says, surely this was the answer, self-knowledge. Surely coming and knowing this cycle will be enough to achieve recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Well, let's see what happens to Bill Wilson.
But it was not, for the frightful day came when I drank once more. The curve of my declining moral and bodily health fell off like a ski jump. After a time, I returned to the hospital. This was the finish, the curtain, it seemed to me. My weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failure during delirium tremens, or I would develop a wet brain, perhaps within a year. She would soon have to give me over to the undertaker or the asylum. They did not need to tell me. I knew and almost welcomed the idea. It was a devastating blow to my pride. I, who had thought so well of myself and my abilities of my capacity to surmount obstacles was cornered. Now I was to plunge into the dark, joining that endless procession of sots who had gone on before. I thought of my poor wife. There had been much happiness after all. What would I not give to make amends? But that was over now.
Okay, so we're going to stop there. Okay, so that's what happens to Bill Wilson, just knowing the problem. Okay, knowing nothing more than just the problem. We get this idea, the problem, the grave nature of alcoholism from Dr. Silkworth. In order for me to achieve recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous, I need much, much more than that. I need a solution to that problem. The solution is given to us by Dr. Carl Jung. You can go read it on page 26 in our book. A solution is a vital spiritual experience. Then I need a program of action that I can do to achieve this solution to overcome the problem. So in the first week, we did a little bit of study on AA history, and we learned of Rowland Hazard. So Rowland Hazard is a rich kid in the 1920s and early 1930s whose parents sent him to go work with Carl Jung. Rowland Hazard is a bit of a drunk. Dr. Jung says, I can't help you. You have to have this vital spiritual experience. Rowland Hazard comes back to the United States. He gets involved with these guys, the Oxford group. The Oxford group were simply kind of upper middle class people on the eastern seaboard of the United States, started by a guy named Dr. Frank Buchmann, who was a minister who came up with these concepts of anyone who will take these certain simple actions, and you can go look at them on page 263 in our book. At base, at level, what they are is surrender to God, surrender, confession, restitution, and service. Okay? It's really that simple, and anyone can understand it that simply. Surrender, confession, restitution, and service. And anyone who will take those actions will have a deeper experience of God. So Rowland Hazard hears this and says, hey, Dr. Jung just said, if I don't have this deeper experience, I'm going to die drunk. Rowland Hazard starts doing this work, stays sober. Not long after that, there's a court case. A guy had been arrested for his third DUI in the state of Vermont. Third DUI in the state of Vermont, you go to jail immediately. Some of his friends were involved with the Oxford group, including Rowland Hazard. And they said, hey, why don't we go talk to the judge, see if we can get this guy off, tell him what we did with you, Rowland, we'll see if we can help him. They went to court, and we're going to read the actual story tonight of what happened. They go to court, and they got their friend, Ebby Thatcher, out of going to jail. Ebby Thatcher now is armed with the solution and the program of action, but he does not yet know what our problem is. He does not yet know about the physical allergy and the mental obsession that was given to us, the medical estimate of the plan of recovery in our book. That only comes from Dr. Silkworth. And so what we're going to see today and where we're going to kick off on, we're going to be on page 8, everyone. The words are near the end of that bleak November. What we're going to see is Ebby Thatcher coming to visit an old school acquaintance of his to carry the message of sobriety that he's found through the Oxford group. And in that moment, he's going to carry this message to Bill Wilson. And in Bill Wilson's kitchen, we're going to see for the first time ever all 3 pieces of information coming into frame at the same time. The 3 things that I need to achieve recovery in AA. I need to know what the problem is, I need to know what the solution is, and I need to know what the program of action is. And that's why I say this is one of the most important pieces of history in all of humanity, I believe. Because for the first time ever, in this moment, in Bill Wilson's kitchen, in November, I believe it was November 27th or 28th of 1934, Ebby Thatcher is going to come to Bill Wilson's house, and he is going to bring Bill the solution and the program of action. Bill Wilson already knows what the problem is from Dr. Silkworth, and in this moment, the tracks are laid for recovery being available to guys and gals like you and I in Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is really one of the turning points of human history, and certainly a new epoch in the annals of solution available to members of Alcoholics Anonymous. So with that said, guys, we're going to be on page 8, near the end of that bleak November. Okay. And again, we're in Bill's story. So this is Bill Wilson's story. This is Bill Wilson writing, and he's going to talk about what happens when Ebby Thatcher comes over. Brad, back to you.
Near the end of that bleak November, I sat drinking in my kitchen. With a certain satisfaction, I reflected there was enough gin concealed about the house to carry me through that night and the next day. My wife was at work. I wondered whether I dared hide a full bottle of gin near the head of my bed. I would need it before daylight. My musing was interrupted by the telephone. The cheery voice of an old school friend asked if he might come over. He was sober. It was years since I could remember his coming to New York in that condition. I was amazed. Rumor had it that he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. I wondered how he had escaped. Of course.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause there. If you haven't figured it out, this is Bill Wilson's friend. His name is Ebby Thatcher. Okay, he's an important figure in early AA history. And I just want to point out, Bill Wilson here's rumor had it he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. Yes, he almost was committed because he'd gotten his 3rd DUI in the state of Vermont and he was going to go to jail. Bill Wilson then says, I wondered how he had escaped. We know how he escaped. He escaped because members of the Oxford group came and spoke to the judge about this simple program of action and a simple religious, spiritual idea that they had that Ebby Thatcher is going to talk about here. And that's how he escaped.
Of course he would have dinner, and then I could drink openly with him. Unmindful of his welfare, I thought only of recapturing the spirit of other days. There was that time we had chartered an airplane to complete a jag. His coming was an oasis in this dreary desert of futility. The very thing, an oasis. Drinkers are like that. The door opened and he stood there, fresh-skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened?
So some of you will know this is one of my favorite lines in our entire book, because Ebby Thatcher has not even said a word yet to Bill Wilson, but he's already carried an important and powerful message. He's never seen his friend Ebby fresh-skinned and glowing. He's never seen the flicker of light of God in his eyes before. He was inexplicably different. I love this line because, guys, I think, and what this means for me and how this applies to all of you is that, I would come to Alcoholics Anonymous and I didn't get sober right away. I came to AA and I relapsed many, many, many times. The one thing I could never get out of my head, out of my mind, every time I was back out drinking. I couldn't remember the big book. I couldn't remember, your slogans. I couldn't remember what the steps were, but the one thing I could never get out of my mind was the smile on your face and the look in your eyes and the laughter and the warm handshakes and the feeling of being welcome. Okay. And so if you're here and you're new and you're thinking, what can I ever do to, carry a message to someone? Brothers and sisters, sometimes the most important thing we can do, don't ever underestimate the power of just shaking someone's hand and smiling and letting them know that they're welcome. And we become the fresh-skinned and glowing people in their lives. And there's something about our eyes that they see. And that may be the only message we can ever carry to someone because they're not listening. They may not be ready to listen. They may not decide that they want what we have, but they're sure that they don't want what they have anymore. They may not be ready to come to believe in a power greater than themselves, but they come to believe that their situation is hopeless. And somehow, some way, we have an answer for them. The other thing I like to point out here about this is that Ebby and Bill are old drinking buddies. And I've heard a lot of people say in their lives, I can't go make amends to people in my old way of life because it'll put me in danger. And I think Alcoholics Anonymous is more powerful than that. Step 10 gives us that promise that we will be in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. And maybe if we go back and try to make amends to some of the people from our old lives, they will see us as being fresh-skinned and glowing. There's something about their eyes. We will be inexplicably different. And we may have an opportunity to carry a message to someone that will be more powerful than if they meet just with a stranger, because they've known us from our previous lives, just like Bill did with Evan. Okay, back to you, Brad.
I pushed a drink across the table. He refused it. Disappointed but curious, I wondered what had got into the fellow. He wasn't himself. Come, what's all this about? I queried. He looked straight at me, simply but smilingly. He said, I've got religion. I was
Okay, so when he says, I've got religion, what does he mean? He means simply that he is now working with the Oxford Group, and the Oxford Group were a religious society. Okay, without question, they were a Christian organization. Before you freak out and delete the Zoom call, everybody don't freak out. Okay, Alcoholics Anonymous is not a religious organization whatsoever. Thank God that we have no allegiance to any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Okay, we have one primary purpose, and that is to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. We have one requirement for membership here, and that is simply a desire to stop drinking. We don't care what you believe, thank God. But just know, when Ebby Thatcher says, I've got religion, what he means is that he has accepted the program of action to achieve the solution to his alcoholic problem. And he has done the work of the Oxford Group: surrender, confession, restitution, and service to achieve that solution. That's what he means when he says, I've got religion. And Bill Wilson says now, Brad?
I was aghast. So that was it. Last summer, an alcoholic crackpot. Now I suspected a little cracked about religion. He had that starry-eyed look. Yes, the old boy was on fire, all right. But bless his heart, let him rant. Besides, my gin would last longer than his preaching. But he did no
So
rant.
what does aghast mean? Aghast means filled with horror or shock, right? As I would have been, man, if I'm trying to get my drink on in my kitchen and somebody comes and starts wanting to spread the good news of their religion, I would have been filled with horror or shock too. And he thinks that Ebby Thatcher is going to start ranting at it and start speaking in tongues and snake handling and shaving his head and selling big books at the airport and all those jokes, right? But let's see how Ebby Thatcher handles this situation.
But he did no ranting. In a matter-of-fact way, he told how two men had appeared in court persuading the judge to suspend his commitment. They had told of a simple religious idea and a practical program of action. That was 2 months ago, and the result was self-evident. It worked.
Okay, so I just want to point out again, and I'm really just trying to connect some of the dots here for you guys, okay? He spoke of a simple religious idea that a vital spiritual experience is the solution to alcoholism. God conquers alcoholism. That's the simple religious idea, and a practical program of action. Practical program of action. Again, you can go to page 263 in the back of the book and see what is the original 6 steps of the Oxford Group. I even distilled them down into, as I've said, surrender, confession, restitution, and service. There's 6 steps of the Oxford Group on page 263, which of course were expanded by Bill Wilson into our 12 steps. So we have a simple religious idea, which is our solution. God is more powerful than alcoholism, period. That is the idea. That's the simple religious idea and a practical program of action. Our 12-step program of recovery to achieve this solution to overcome the problem. Okay? Brad, back to you.
He had come to pass his experience along to me, if I cared to have it. I was shocked, but interested. Certainly I was interested. I had to be, for I was hopeless. He talked.
Hey, by the way, I wanted to point out how long, people ask how long should someone be sober before they go to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous? How long should we be sober before we sponsor someone? I don't have a strong definitive answer. I think the answer is always different for everyone, but I will say, and it's it's irrefutable. It cannot be argued with that Ebby Thatcher, if you go back and look at page 9, Bill Wilson says that was 2 months ago and the result was self-evident. It worked. So it's obvious, but I'm going to ask, how long had Bill Wilson, or rather had Ebby Thatcher been sober when he carried the message to Bill Wilson? 2 months. He was 2 months sober, okay, when he went and worked with Bill. So I think that merits some consideration. Brad, back to you. Thank you.
We talked for hours. Childhood memories rose before me. I could almost hear the sound of the preacher's voice as I sat on still Sundays way over there on the hillside. There was that proffered temperance pledge I never signed, my grandfather's good-natured contempt of some church folk and their doings, his insistence that the Spheres really had their music, but his denial of the preacher to tell him how he must listen. His fearlessness as he spoke of these things just before he died. These recollections welled up from the past. They made me swallow hard.
So I want to share something that, I read this 100 times in my life and never really understood something. And that is this idea that the Spheres really had their music, but his refusal to let the preacher tell him how he must listen. What the heck does that mean? What does that mean? That the Spheres really have their music? So I went back and looked. And what it means, there you go, Brad, perfect. I think it was the ancient Greeks believed that as the planets rotated, they actually made music. There was actually a sound that they made, and that there was like this celestial symphony of all of the stars and planets turning at the same time, and it created this beautiful like orchestral music. Okay. So what he's saying is he could buy into this idea of like, celestial universal stuff, but he wasn't going to let any human being tell him how to listen, okay, or tell him what the music sounded like, okay? So that's all that means. When it says his insistence that the Spheres really had their music, that's what it means, okay? I needed to go understand that, because I would read stuff like that and it would confuse me. I didn't know what they were talking about. And so what we're going to see really now is Bill Wilson grappling with the idea of step 2, okay? And we're going to see him struggle with this. And it's something that he struggled with his whole life. And Ebby Thatcher is going to really help him to simplify this whole thing. And we're going to see Ebby Thatcher give Bill Wilson what I like to call the 1-2 punch. And we're going to see Bill indulge in wordy books and windy arguments, and he's going to squawk on and on about what he believes and how he feels about God and all that kind of good stuff. And I'm here to tell you, man, in my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous, what I believe is not important. How I believe is not important. The only thing that matters is, number one, do I believe? Number one, that is it. Yes or no? Do I believe that there is something? Am I even willing to believe that there could be something? And from there, the only thing that matters, only thing that counts in Alcoholics Anonymous is not what I believe, but what I do. The most important word in all of Alcoholics Anonymous, I believe, is the word do. Capital D, capital O. Do. That's all that it counts, is that program of action. Program of action that guides me towards that relationship with God. And my relationship with God will grow and expand and become more magnificent over time. And sometimes it becomes less magnificent. Okay? And sometimes, like, I lose, connection. I got to work hard to rebuild that connection. I'm just being straight with you. Okay? I am not like tuned into the fourth dimension all the time. Okay, one of my favorite things is like a pilot who flies from Los Angeles to New York is only on course like 1% of the time. Most of the time, he is off course, and his job is to guide himself in the plane and the passengers back onto the flight plan. Okay, and that's me in Alcoholics Anonymous. I am on the path about 1% of the time. The rest of my time is doing the work of Alcoholics Anonymous to get myself back into alignment. You guys with me on that? So I'm getting on kind of a tangent right now. Ebby Thatcher and Bill Wilson are going to talk really about step 2. And we're going to see, and I'm going to point out here where Ebby gives him the 1-2 punch in his. Back to you, Brad.
That wartime day in Old Winchester Cathedral came back again. I'd always believed in a power greater than myself. I had often pondered these things. I was not an atheist. Few people really are, for that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in a cipher and aimlessly rushes nowhere. My intellectual heroes, the chemists, the astronomers, even the evolutionists, suggested vast laws and forces at work. Despite contrary indications, I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlay all. How could there be so much of precise and immutable law and no intelligence? I simply had to believe in the spirit of the universe, who knew neither time nor limitation. But that was as far as I had gone. With ministers in the world's religions, I parted right there. When they talked of a God personal to me, who was love, superhuman strength, and direction, I became irritated and my mind snapped shut against such a theory. To Christ I conceded the certainty of a great man, not too closely followed by those who claimed him. His moral teaching most excellent. For myself, I had adopted those parts which seemed convenient and not too difficult. The rest I disregarded. The wars which had been fought, the burnings and chicanery that religious dispute had facilitated made me sick. I honestly doubted whether, on balance, the religions of mankind had done any good. Judging from what I had seen in Europe and since, the power of God in human affairs was negligible. The brotherhood of man a grim jest. If there was a devil, he seemed the boss universal, and he certainly had me. But my
Okay,
friend,
so here's what I want you to picture. Okay, poor Ebby Thatcher sitting in Bill Wilson's kitchen. Bill Wilson with 6 days of beard growth and an old dirty bathrobe with cigarette burns on it, drunk off his butt on bottles of bathtub gin, squawking at Ebby Thatcher about chicanery of the wars that I saw, Ebby, and the brotherhood of man is a grim jest. Doesn't that sound like a drunk? Doesn't that sound like how I would have sounded talking about God, what I thought about God when I was a drunk? Okay, and that's what Bill Wilson's been doing. And thank God for Ebby Thatcher. Very patiently is sitting and listening to this dirty old drunk, our co-founder of AA, the dirty old drunk, talking this crazy nonsense about what he believes and what he doesn't believe. And look, guys, in my experience too with sponsees, man, we can sit and talk till we're blue in the face about what they believe in terms of step 2. And I'm here to tell you, I don't think it matters at all what they believe. Step 2 does not require that they believe anything in particular. Step 2 only requires that I do believe in something. I think that question can be asked very quickly, and then we move forward into the work, because the work is what is going to transform my understanding of God. I think it's safe to say that we have no idea who or what or when God is when we get to AA. Not a clue. Okay. So this idea, I heard this great story. I'm just going to share it now because I think it's funny. This old timer and this new guy are talking, and the new guy said, well, I was at this treatment center and they said, that I needed to read all these spiritual textbooks and all this stuff. And that would give me a better idea about God in terms of step 2. And I need to take a little bit from each book and put it all together. What do you think? The old timer says, well, it's probably not going to hurt, but we think it's better if we just come to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. And then the newcomer says, well, okay, but I was in this treatment center too, and they told me that what I needed to do was come up with this one ad for God. And I was gonna, I was gonna put it in a newspaper, like everything I'm looking for in God, and to write it all out and have it all, lined up, and then go ahead and have that all written out. Okay. The old timer says, well, it's probably not going to hurt, but we think it's best if you just come to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. And anyway, on and on like that, right? And all of these things that we try to do for step 2, I don't think it's as important as just coming to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. Okay, that's what step 2 says. And let's be clear, guys. When we're talking about the insanity of step 1 and sanity in step 2, all that we're really meaning with respect to the first drink is that God can help restore our thinking so that we can discern the true from the false, that we no longer fall prey to the insane idea around the first drink. It does not mean that I'm not going to think crazy things and still have some level of craziness in my life from time to time and so on and so forth. When we're talking about being restored to sanity, being simply and miraculous, talking about God restoring our thinking in terms of our inability to distinguish the truth from the false with respect to picking up the first drink. Does that make sense, you guys? That's it. That's it. Okay. And the last thing I'll say about coming to believe, and we'll talk about this more when we get to We Agnostics, but Cease Corgle, great AA member from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, years ago, somebody asked him, how do you come to believe? And he said, make believe. Okay, we get to pick our own God name, and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. So what I want you guys to see, here's the first one. Here's the first punch. Bill Wilson is just squawked on and on and on. Wah, 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 wah. Here's what I believe. Okay. And Ebby is being very patient with him. And now Ebby is going to respond to this. And we're going to see what happens to Bill Wilson. Bill said all this stuff about here's what I believe and what I don't believe, and what I like and what I don't like. And he's filled with self-will right now, really is what it is with respect to God. Let's see how Ebby responds. Brad?
But my friend sat before me, and he had the point-blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. His human will had failed. Doctors had pronounced him incurable. Society was about to lock him up. Like myself, he had admitted complete defeat. Then he had, in effect, been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from a scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. Had this power originated in him? Obviously, it had not. There had been no more power in him than there was in me at that minute, and this was none at all.
Okay, so Ebby now has just said to him, hey, man, I don't know what you believe, but here's the real deal, okay? This power, whatever this power is, Bill, has saved my life. And Bill can see this because he knew the way Ebby was. And so Ebby has now just testified that this power has done this in my life. And Bill, you knew me. I could not stay sober on my own. And now this power has done something in my life. So this is the first punch. Okay. Simply, Ebby is saying, look, Bill, what's happened to me is not evidence enough for you. I don't know what to tell you. This power has changed my life, and I'm sober today. 2 months because of what this power has done. So that's the first punch. And let's see what happens to Bill Wilson now.
That floored me.
He's floored. He's floored by this. Okay? He's floored. God, he's right, man. He's right. All this stuff that I think I know and I believe, like Ebby's sober, man. Ebby's sober. Would I like to be sober? Hell yeah. Can this thing maybe happen to me too? I don't know. Back to you, Red.
It began to look as though religious people were right after all. Here was something at work in a human heart which had done the impossible. My ideas about miracles were drastically revised right then. Never mind the musty past. Here sat a miracle directly across the kitchen table. He shouted great tidings. I saw that my friend was much more than inwardly reorganized. He was on a different footing. His roots grasped a new soil.
I love that saying, man. Anyone here, show of hands, anyone here prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous when you were trying to get sober, anyone here just ever try to inwardly reorganize yourself? I know I did, man. Okay? Moral and philosophical convictions galore. And if I could just read the right, Deepak Chopra book and take the right Tony Robbins course and enter the right yoga class, I could just inwardly reorganize myself. Thank you very much. Okay. And I get it. And it's not possible for an alcoholic of my type. Next week, when we get to There Is a Solution, there may be, we're going to talk about heavy drinkers and then real alcoholics. Heavy drinkers, God bless them, they may be able to just inwardly reorganize myself. I would inwardly reorganize myself right to the liquor store is where I would go. Okay, that's how it would go. So now let's see what happens with Bill and Ebby now. And get ready, because Ebby's winding up with the second punch.
Despite the living example of my friend, there remained in me the vestiges of my old prejudice. The word God still aroused a certain antipathy. When the thought was expressed that there might be a God personal to me, this feeling was intensified. I didn't like the idea. I could go for such conceptions as creative intelligence, universal mind, or spirit of nature, but I resisted the thought of a czar of the heavens, however loving his sway might be. I have since talked with scores of men who felt the same thing. My friend suggested what a novel idea. He said,
Oh, everybody, here it comes. Here it comes.
Why don't you choose your own conception of God?
Boom. Boom. Okay, just knocked him again. Boom. Bill Wilson is like stunned. He has no idea. What are you going to say to something like that? And what's the next line? That statement hit me hard. Thank God. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. Bill Wilson took a little bit of poetic license with this. In writing the book, it didn't happen that way with Bill and Ebby. Okay, Ebby was clear that this is the Oxford program. It's a Christian organization, but Bill, if you want to get sober, come and check some of this stuff out. And Bill said, like he liked the idea of the program of action and this overall like idea of a spiritual solution, but he could not accept all the tenets of the Oxford group. And fundamentally, Bill Wilson knew that alcoholics were going to resist a religious program. And there were others, there was a guy named Jim Burwell, who was an early atheist in AA, who really resisted some of the religious aspects of AA, and there were many others. So this idea, and I've asked around and I've studied a lot of history and so on, where exactly precisely does this idea of choosing a God of our own understanding come from? I believe that there is no one singular person who's responsible for it. I believe that God expressed himself through the group conscience of AA, through the first 100 members, that in Alcoholics Anonymous, we were given the autonomy and the liberty and the luxury and the joy of being able to experience God of our own understanding, to just open that door, just that little bit, so a guy like me could slither under. Okay, because if Alcoholics Anonymous, if step 2 said came to believe that Allah or Jesus or the Buddha could restore us to sanity, I never would have gotten sober. If step 3 said made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to care of any religion, I never would have gotten sober. The autonomy that we have been given by God's grace in this moment to choose our own conception of God is something unique and special, I believe, to Alcoholics Anonymous. Show me another society, show me another organization on the planet where you get to pick your own God. I don't know of any, okay, other than Alcoholics Anonymous, where we as alcoholics are given the grace to have our own experience and the dignity of our own experience with God and the ability to grow into that relationship over time. And for a lot of us, it does transform over time into a religious belief or a religious practice of some kind. I've seen that happen many, many times. But in this moment, Ebby Thatcher has just said to Bill, hey, why don't you choose your own conception? If you're getting hung up on this, okay, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And that hits Bill Wilson hard. Okay, so Brad, back to you.
That statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning.
Okay, so you might want to make a note in your book. That is the moment that Bill Wilson accepts step 2. That is the moment that Bill Wilson does step 2. It was only a matter of being willing. It doesn't even say you have to believe yet. It's only a matter of being willing. Nothing more was required. Nothing more for me to make my beginning. If you're here and you're new and you're wondering, where do I make my beginning? That's the beginning. Nothing more was required than willingness to believe that there could be something. And when we get to we agnostics, when we talk about the first step 2 proposal, the question is going to be, do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe there is a power greater than myself? Period. Nothing more was required to make our beginning. What does it say in our book? As soon as a man or woman can say, we do believe, or we are even willing to believe, we emphatically assure you you're on your way. Again, if you're here, you're new, and you're wondering, where do I make a beginning? And I love, you know what I love in my heart right now? I see people taking notes. Okay, I love it. Where do we make our beginning? That is it. Matt C in Suffolk, UK. I can see it, man. I can see you making those notes, brother. That's where we make our beginning, right there. Am I willing to believe in anything? From there, everything can change. Okay? Brilliant, Brad. Back to you.
I saw that growth could start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. Thus was I convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. At long last, I saw, I felt, and believed. Scales of pride and prejudice fell from my eyes. A new world came into view. The real significance of my experience in the cathedral burst upon me. For a brief moment, I had needed and wanted God. There had been a humble willingness to have him with me, and he came. But soon the sense of his presence had been blotted out by worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. And so it had been ever since. How blind I had been.
Okay, that's a really important line. I had needed and wanted God, and he came. But soon the sense of his presence was blotted out by worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. I've got a few sponsees on the call tonight, but in particular, Ken and Nick. We talked about this just the other day, didn't we? We talked about step 4. What's the purpose of the rest of the steps of step 4? The purpose is to clear away those worldly clamors within myself that are blocking me from the power. Okay. Step 4 says we had to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Blocking us from what? Blocking us from God. When we harbor such feelings of resentment in step 4, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. What is shutting us off? The sunlight of the Spirit cannot get into us because of these worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. Okay, so that's a really important line, and we're going to talk about that when we come back to step 4. But just for now, just understand that it's those worldly clamors within us that sometimes can disconnect or get a fuzzy, static connection to God. And so the purpose of the rest of the steps of AA after step 2 and 3 is to clear away the things within me that are blocking me, pulling away, clearing away those worldly clamors within myself that have been blocking me. Okay? Back to you, Brad.
At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirium tremens. There, I humbly offered myself to God as I then understood him, do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction.
Okay, so I just want to point out here a couple things. So Ebby Thatcher, so Bill Wilson starts drinking again on Armistice Day, November 11th, 1934. Ebby Thatcher, I think it's still a little fuzzy, and you may know better than me, Rob. I believe Ebby Thatcher comes to Bill's house like November 27th or 28th, 1934. It's in that range. Bill Wilson, it makes it seem like Bill Wilson gets sober right away, but he does not. Bill Wilson keeps drinking for many days until December 11th. Bill Wilson's last drink is December 11th, 1934, and he's admitted to the town's hospital again. Bill Wilson detoxes for 5 or 6 days. Ebby Thatcher then comes to the town's hospital again, December 16th, 1934. Between December 16th and December 18th, when Bill Wilson is released from the hospital, they do the steps. They do the program of action. They don't talk about it. They don't philosophize about it. They don't go to 3-topic discussion, group therapy, AA, pop psychology meetings and discuss it. They do the program of action between December 16th and December 18th. And Bill Wilson never drinks again. Okay? Never drinks again until the time of his death in 1972. Amazing. Right now, we are going to see Bill Wilson do the steps with Ebby Thatcher. And Brad, I'm gonna let you do this for us. As you're reading through the steps, can you indicate which and where Ebby is and Bill is doing each one of the steps? I know you can rock this for us.
All right, let's start at the top of the paragraph. There I humbly offered myself to God as I then understood him to do with me as he would. That'd be step 3. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself that without him I was lost. Right, so step 3. Then step 4, I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away root and branch. So 6 and 7. I have not had.
And just to be clear, and so there's no confusion, when he says newfound friend, he is not talking about Ebby Thatcher. Who is Bill Wilson's new friend at this point?
God.
G to the OD, baby. G Dizzle. G Dizzle. That's his new friend is going to take these away root and branch. All right.
My schoolmate visited me, and I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. Step 5. We made a list of people I had hurt. Step 8, and toward whom I felt resentment. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals, admitting my wrongs. So that was step 8. Never was I to be critical of them. I was to write all such matters to the utmost of my ability, which is step 9. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. So we're talking about step 10 and 11 probably. I was to sit quietly, when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. So that's step 11. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request bore on my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Simple but not easy.
You know what? I got to say, guys. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in real quick. We're going to go a few minutes over. If you can hang with us till about 5 minutes after 7. But the more that we read this book over time, like different things jump out to you, man. That line, the elements of a way of living that will answer all my problems. Beautiful. I've never heard that before. I don't know why I never heard that before, but that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is giving me. The elements of a way of life which will answer all my problems. Booyah! Back to you, Brad.
Simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of Light, who presides over us all. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but when I fully accepted them, the effect was electric.
Okay, so this is a famous thing in Alcoholics Anonymous. You will, if you go to conferences around the world, everyone is familiar with Bill Wilson's powerful white light, hot flash spiritual experience that he had in the town's hospital. Okay, Bill Wilson is a guy who has a real spiritual experience. Okay, like burning bush, wind of the mountain, and electricity through the window, spiritual moment. Okay, It doesn't happen for all of us that way. It's never happened for me that way. And we'll talk more about that. We'll talk as we go. When we get to step 2, when we get to We Agnostics, we'll talk about that. I just want to connect one dot for you. That Bill Wilson has this incredible spiritual experience that is really foundational in the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. We know that. We believe that. Does Bill Wilson have that experience before he does the steps? Or does Bill Wilson have that experience after he does the steps? After he's done the steps. And as the result of the 12 steps, he has this spiritual awakening. Well, that should not be news to anyone who's ever read step 12. You see, one of the hardest things for me to do is just read the step the way it's written, not the way I interpret it. People said, Kevin, step 12. Oh, I know. The 2 most dangerous words an alcoholic can ever say are the words, I know. And Kevin, step 12. No, I know. Have you really read step 12? No, I know. Step 12, the one where you help people. And that's not exactly what it says. It says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. I was in AA for over 5 years the first time I actually saw that, and I was gobsmacked. It was like a diamond between the eyes. Like, oh my God. I kept trying to have the experience. I thought that I had to become spiritual, to become holy enough to then do the steps. And that's not the way it works. We do the steps, then Bill Wilson has his white light experience. Okay? Brad, back to you.
There was a sense of victory followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through.
Lift it up, baby. Lift it up.
God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. For a moment, I was alarmed and called my friend doctor to ask if I were still sane.
So he calls Dr. Silkworth. It's Dr. Silkworth in the town's hospital, the guy that gave him the problem. Remember, Bill Wilson's been there 4 times. Bill Wilson is a hopeless drunk. He calls Dr. Silkworth and says, dude, I'm tripping. What do you think? Here's what Dr. Silkworth says.
He listened in wonder as I talked. Finally, he shook his head, saying, something has happened to you I don't understand, but you had better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were. The good doctor now sees many men who have such experiences. He knows that they are real. While I lay in the hospital, the thought came that there were thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have what had been so freely given me.
Millions of hopeless alcoholics.
Perhaps I could help some of them. They in turn might work with others. My friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. Particularly was it imperative to work with others as he had worked with me. Faith without works was dead, he said, and how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if any alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again, and if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. My wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. It was fortunate for my old business associates to remain skeptical for a year and a half, during which I found little work. I was not too well at the time and was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. This sometimes nearly drove me back to drink, but I soon found that when all other measures failed, work with another alcoholic would save the day. Many times I have gone to my old hospital in despair. On talking to a man there, I would be amazingly lifted up and set on my feet. It was a design for living that works in rough going. We commenced to make many fast friends, and the fellowship has grown up among us, of which it is a wonderful thing to feel a part. The joy of living we really have, even under pressure and difficulty. I have seen hundreds of families set their feet in the path that really goes somewhere. have seen the most impossible domestic situations righted, feuds and bitterness of all sorts wiped out. I have seen men come out of asylums and resume a vital place in the lives of their families and communities. Business and professional men have regained their standing. There is scarcely any form of trouble and misery which has not been overcome among us. In one Western city and its environs, there are 1,000 of us and our families. We meet frequently so that newcomers may find the fellowship they seek. At these informal gatherings, one may often see from 50 to 200 persons. We're growing in numbers and power. Then the asterisk at the bottom of my book says, in 2022, AA is composed of approximately 120,455 groups. An alcoholic in his cups is an unlovely creature. Our struggles with
guys, that just means an alcoholic who is drinking. In his cups just means an alcoholic who is drinking is an unlovely creature. Isn't that an understatement? Anyway.
Our struggles with them are variously strenuous, comic, and tragic. One poor chap committed suicide in my home. He could not or would not see our way of life. There is, however, a vast amount of fun about it all. I suppose some would be shocked at our seemingly worldliness and levity. But just underneath, there is deadly earnestness. Faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. Most of us feel we need look no further for utopia. We have it with us right here and now. Each day, my friends, simple talk in our kitchen multiplies itself in a widening circle of peace on earth and goodwill to men. Bill W., co-founder of AA, died January 24th, 1971.
Beautiful. Okay, everyone, that's it for this week. So we'll say the Lord's Prayer, as is our joy at this particular study. So we'll say the Lord's Prayer, and then don't run away. Everyone stick around, and we'll go around the room, and everyone can say hello and just let us know where you're from. It's my favorite part of the whole week, getting to say hi to all you fine folks from all over the world. What an incredible joy. So sing along if you know the words. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.